Hey guys, we're live. It's Ted Bogert back with the TED Show. I love bringing on new guests who have different perspectives that I haven't had on before, and I want to welcome Indranil Ghosh to the show. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
I'm great, Ted. Good to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Very excited to have you. Tiger Hill Capital, poweringprosperity.com. The website's down there. But you have a great story and a great journey, and you obviously are successful at what you do, and that's what we try to do, motivate and inspire here. So give them a little background on you.
Well, I started off life as a scientist. I've always had a great, interest in science and technology. I did my graduate work at MIT up in Boston. But then I became interested in the commercialization of technology and, went into the business world. I was with a consulting firm, McKinsey, for quite a few years, and then went into, a hedge fund, Bridgewater, in Connecticut. So it was a pretty conventional corporate finance path to begin with. But for the last 10 or so years, I've been really increasingly obsessed with sustainable investing and impact entrepreneurs and helping them to achieve incredible things with their businesses, which are both very financially successful, so they're great investments, but also that they have this, second bottom line impact, which you could say is an impact on society or the environment or communities. And yeah, I think, that is the way to go.
So where did the love for sustainability come from?
Well, after I left the hedge fund, I actually had a very interesting, you could say, life-changing career move. I went far afield to Abu Dhabi, of all places. And I was with a company as their head of strategy for several years. It's called Mubadala. And they have a very interesting mission. And what they do is they take public money, the government's money, and their job is to invest it for the long term, for the betterment of the country, to build up, social services like healthcare and education, to create jobs in a lot of different sectors other than just oil and gas, which is obviously a big sector for them. And then also to create knowledge-based economies so that the next generation of people in Abu Dhabi have high-paid jobs that will, help put them on the map in the industries of the future. I just thought that was just such a fantastic mission to have that, I leapt at the opportunity. And then since leaving them and coming back to my home country of the UK and being based in London, I've set up my own firm, Tiger Hill Capital, which continues to help investors who want to get into this type of investing, as well as entrepreneurs who want their, transformative companies to be funded to meet those investors. So helping to bridge the gap between great ideas and great companies and capital that will support those visions.
I think it's interesting because I've got feedback on your side. Hold on. I think it's interesting because people have a lot of options out there. They didn't used to have a lot of options. We started with, I can't remember right off the top of my head who was before GoFundMe, but there were other places out there that would fund or at least help fund or provide a platform to fund these cool startups. And then people started understanding there was it's not for the risk averse necessarily, but they realized that there was a great opportunity to do good and to make money. And I think what's happened now is that you've got all of these wonderful companies that are funding through this platform. It's become almost the primary platform. It's traditional banking. It's not the same if you're coming to people and you've got a startup. So explain a little bit about, I've got a startup now for you. I'm Ted Bogert, and I want to go through a little bit through the process because people are afraid of traditional banking a little bit when they're a startup. They don't know how they're going to prove anything at this particular point. So take them through it and make it real, but not as scary as they think it is.
Well, I'll actually take you through a couple of real examples of companies that I'm working with. That's probably the easiest way because some of them are doing all the right things and doing a phenomenal job. And one of the companies I'm working with is a company that's doing vertical farming in upstate New York. So let me just take a minute to explain what that is.
Yes, please.
So essentially, a vertical farm is a building, a structure, where you can have, basically the growth of fruits, herbs, spices, certain types of fruits and, leafy greens, that type of, produce, vertically stacked in floors in a building, right? And a lot of people think about vertical farming who know about it and think, oh, this is a cool thing to do in a disused warehouse in the middle of Manhattan, let's say. But actually, when you look at the economics of it, what you want to do is make that structure as big as possible, put it on the cheapest land or free land, if possible, that you can, and then take out the energy cost as much as possible, because energy is about 35 to 38% of the value of the food. And that's a third of it, more than a third of it is just the cost of the energy.
Wow.
So what they're doing is building a vertical farm, which is going to be the area of 7 American football fields. And they're putting solar panels on the roof. They're going to have a manure digester on the side, which takes dairy manure, takes that unhelpful effluent from dairy farms, which is a big emitter of carbon, emitter of carbon and greenhouse gases, and turns it into energy to power the big greenhouse. And since it's just a couple of hours away from Manhattan, the transport costs of getting that fresh produce to a big consumer center, is much lower than if you had to get it from Arizona or California, where a lot of these produce is currently grown. So the first step is to have an incredible business idea. There's no way around that, right? And the way they've done this is to take out a lot of the cost of producing food through the energy, through the sort of large growing area in a small area of cheap land, and made a great business. So obviously what that means is that they've been able to get a lot of the local community on board. So the SUNY school is working with them to help with the R&D and all the technical aspects of it. Obviously the local community is very excited to have 100 new college level jobs being created, which will be tremendous for the community and the prosperity that will bring. So you bring in support from the community, and that support can come with grants and funding. So it actually helps, again, the economics of your business. And then when you have these things in place, you can go to the type of funding platforms that you're talking about, or companies like Tiger Hill Capital, who can then give you help you get access to other investors who have a similar vision of supporting businesses that can do good, but also having amazing economics and solve social problems.
People can't just come to you though and say, hey Indranil, I have this idea. There has to be some work and blood, sweat, and tears they put into an actual real functioning business. Or can somebody say, hey, I've got this idea, I haven't put anything except telling you my idea right now? Like, what level does it need to be?
We usually don't start that early, but there are many places that will help you. Now, if you go to, if you have technology you want to develop, you may want to partner with a university to help you with the R&D. There are often a lot of venture capitalists who are working with those university departments to find the best ideas and help with the commercialization. We usually come in just at the stage after that, when the idea is there, there's a decent team, maybe you've proven the concept a little bit, but you're looking for a larger amount of capital to scale up your concept to something that's of a commercial scale.
Yes.
And I think that's also, by the way, a very important bottleneck that maybe people don't realize. Certainly getting off the ground is a very hard part, but there comes a point when maybe you've done a pilot or you've got a small scale business, and then you're going to go through the stages of determining whether you're going to be a nice business for, an individual or a small company and be profitable and do well like that, or if you're going to be able to scale to national, even global level. Now, if you have a business like vertical farming, which can be replicated anywhere in the world practically, that's the beauty of it, it's agnostic to climate, then maybe, you have something which investors all around the world will be interested in and want to bring to their country, to do it in Saudi Arabia, to do it in, Central Asia, And I think that's when, from a global impact standpoint, things get really exciting, and you can attract, a lot of investors to help you scale up. But that scale up process is also very challenging.
Talk about it.
Well, when you have what I would say is a good lifestyle business, the management challenges of that are quite different from when you have a global organization with thousands of employees, you're using an enormous amount of capital, potentially with a large number of investors. You just need a lot more competencies, capabilities around you, different types of skill sets and professionals to manage all of that. And you have to have a management team, an executive team who are used to and are capable of managing all that complexity, right? So again, it's not just capital that you need to go from there's a good lifestyle business to something that's a global, world-beating business. You need to professionalize the company and bring in all that kind of talent. And that's another big challenge of making that leap. But I think, the 2020s, if you ask me, is going to be the decade when we, see the first big impact unicorns, because I think we're used to technology unicorns. But I think, if anything, one of the silver linings of this COVID crisis might be that some of the challenges that we've been facing and would have been simmering in the background for a long time, and I talk about this in the book, of course, the COVID crisis has put them in our face. We can't ignore them any longer and just kick the can down the road and try to do business as usual. With 40 million Americans almost without jobs, and big question marks about how we're going to fund all the social programs to keep things going, we have to address some of the big problems like the cost of healthcare, the cost of education and housing. And a large part of the solution is going to be clever entrepreneurs who can work with government, like our vertical farming friends, and come up with solutions that solve for the economic challenges of how do you make this all affordable, and good government, which actually then makes it possible and available to communities. And I think a lot of countries are going to face this challenge. And if anything good comes out of this crisis, it's going to be that we find these good ideas, find these system changes, and implement them finally.
What do you think some of the up and coming industries, so to speak, will be? Because really, I feel like this is on the cutting edge. Anytime you're talking about getting a company who's especially at that level, that's still startup. You're still building, you're still growing, and maybe your idea has not gone global or worldwide yet. But what are some of the things that are coming up, some of the new technologies, the things that you're seeing? Because you guys get to see them before a lot of people get to see them.
Yeah, I think many of the things that will be coming will be on the social services side and the environmental side. I think these are the two big areas that I'm getting very excited about. So if you take something like the environmental side, you've got food production, you've got transportation, you've got energy production, of course. I think there are a lot of innovations which are going to come through now because of necessity, because we have to bring the cost of all these things down. We have to reduce the carbon footprint. And increasingly, there's government regulations in different parts of the world that are incentivizing that transition to a lower carbon economy. So we're going to see things like recycling businesses take off. We're going to see things like vertical farming, or even traditional farming done in a much more regenerative way, which puts carbon back into the soil rather than taking it out. There are ways of doing that. I think all these types of businesses are going to thrive in this decade. On the social services side, I think because we've got an aging population, at least in most developed countries, and that means the number of working age people who pay taxes to support everybody else is getting lower as a proportion. And there's only so much money you can print to sort of kick that can down the road. What we're going to have to do is to make the cost of things like healthcare, education, childcare, and elderly care, housing, much, much lower. Because if you look at what's happened to the real price of things over the last 30 years, the price of things like electronics or cars, they've gone down in real terms. So the stuff has gotten cheaper, but the cost of education, healthcare, and all these other social things has gone way up. So basically, life has gotten really expensive even though stuff has got cheaper. And that's why I think a lot of millennials are like, well, actually, we're not better off than our parents. We can't say the same thing that our parents did, which is they were better off than their parents, because the cost of life has gone up. And in a world where, taxpayer money can't pay for these escalating costs anymore because of an aging population, you've got to innovate to be able to get people, let's say, educated more quickly and job ready earlier so that they can be a productive member of the workforce without necessarily having to go to 4-year college, perhaps, and being in debt, right?
Correct. I think people are really reevaluating their direction and what they're doing, because this has opened the eyes for so many people. I have people who were midstream college that have commented on shows, and they're like, I just decided this wasn't the path I wanted to take. I want to do something different. College will always be there, but my dream, my passion is XYZ. And I think it's given this reset, the COVID. I think it's given us these ideas on, all right, we just faced the most crazy thing that most of us have seen in our lifetimes. And here are my ideas on how to make it better, or make it stop, or make the world not depend on the old ways. Because I think people don't want to necessarily go back to the old ways of doing things, because if they've seen the joys of the canal in Venice being cleaned for the first time, and people seeing mountain ranges from far away they hadn't seen, and getting closer to family and realizing that business wasn't as critical to be there 12, 15 hours a day as you used to think. So lots of amazing things going on. So I have questions from people. If somebody has an idea, can they reach out to you, and do they do that via the website I have here, or a different way?
Well, if you have an idea or a business that you want to bounce off us, you can reach me at my name, Indranil.Ghosh @tigerhillcapital.com. So we have a website, of course, for the business, tigerhillcapital.com. You can find me there, and my contact info is there. So that's if you want to bounce an idea off us, or if you have a business you want to see if it's ready for funding, or what can be done to improve it to be more easily funded. We're definitely happy to take those inquiries.
Anywhere in the world?
We tend to operate in the US, Europe, and the Middle East. Okay. So, and a little bit in Africa. So within those geographies would be helpful, but you never know. It's always worth bouncing the idea off us, and maybe we know someone else who can help you.
I feel like you have to be in a visionary position, because you have to be able to understand people's visions and then see past it, because they're seeing a certain level of vision, but that doesn't mean they have the wherewithal to know the global vision. So I think it's really cool what you all do. Tell me about Powering Prosperity in the book.
Yeah, the book is really a collection of my thinking that's evolved over the last 10 years based on the work I did at Mubadala and what I've done since then. And the basic belief behind the book is twofold. One is that if you empower individuals, they can do amazing, extraordinary things, right? The other belief is that society is actually a positive sum game. So it's not a dog-eat-dog world where if I win, you lose. It's if I help you, that will come back some way to help me in the end. And the whole book is about, well, how do you balance these two? Or how do you get them to happen at the same time and mutually reinforce one another? And the three things that I point out are that it's all about being inclusive, that you need to be able to give, in any society, everyone a fair shot. You have to give them a decent start in life where they get their education, their health is taken care of, they have somewhere to live, the basics of life, which we still can't do for billions of people. And even that's true in the developed world, right? And that's obviously proven by the statistics on inequality. We're just still not very good at giving people, not the lap of luxury, but a fair start in life. And then having a society which, pays people equally, gives everyone a shot who wants to work hard in the workplace, access to capital, and all these other things that are a leveler, right? The second thing is we got to invest in sustainable development. So all the things that the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals talk about, but there's actually an acute shortage of funding for those types of infrastructures and social development challenges. And we got to start, investors have to start shifting capital to those things rather than some of the more frivolous things they perhaps invest in. But also governments have to make the incentives there, put the incentives there to make it worth investors' while, because it's not just going to happen through altruism. And the third thing is what you mentioned, Ted, which is about community. We've got to nourish communities. So businesses, investors, local government have to think on a local level, as well as a global level, but a local level to answer the question, why would anyone want to live here? What would they do here, right? How would they make a living? Would it be a nice place to live? And if you're, as a local community, not attracting businesses, attracting young people through having colleges or universities, or if you're not creating those spaces, working spaces where entrepreneurs can create things, probably not going to thrive. So the book is really about those three pillars: inclusion, sustainable investment, and communities, and how to build them. And there are lots of great examples in the book, like the vertical farmers, like the people who are rebuilding, or refitting real estate to make it, much more user-friendly and well-being oriented, and all sorts of cool ideas there.
So they can buy it.
There's a link on the website to Amazon, so you can just go to Amazon or go through the website and just search for Powering Prosperity, and it'll be there.
I love it. I would love to send a few people to you that I know are at that level of development in their businesses. I think it's amazing what you all do, and I love the fact that you shared your ideas and your insights in your book. So thank you for being on the show. We did it.
It was a pleasure, Ted. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So Indranil Ghosh, guys, reach out to him, powering-prosperity.com or tigerhillcapital.com. Reach out to me if you have any questions, but you can see he's an open book. LinkedIn's probably a great way to reach out as well. So thank you for being on the show, my friend.
My pleasure.
All right, we'll see you guys in a little bit.